The Galactic Council's elite military academy had seen warriors from across the known universe. Towering Krillian battle lords with their forearms and metallic exoskeletons, swift Zephyrian scouts whose movements blurred even to enhanced optics, the crystalline Vorthon tacticians, whose minds calculated trajectories faster than quantum computers, but none had prepared them for Sarah Chen. The human stood barely 1.7 meters tall among beings that averaged twice her height. Her unremarkable brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her equipment looked primitive compared to the plasma rifles and quantum disruptors carried by her alien classmates. In her hands, she cradled what appeared to be an ancient projectile weapon, a custom rifle that drew snickers from the other cadets. "That relic won't even penetrate our training barriers," laughed Vextar, a Krillian whose natural armor could deflect most energy weapons. His translator rendered his chittering as condescending amusement. The Academy's shooting range stretched across a vast canyon, with targets positioned at distances that tested the limits of each species' natural abilities. Most aliens excelled at ranges between 500 and 1,200 meters, distances that allowed their enhanced senses and energy weapons to dominate. The furthest target sat at 2.8 kilometers, a distance only the legendary Vorthon snipers had ever successfully engaged. Instructor Zalthok, a veteran of 17 interstellar conflicts, addressed the mixed class of elite cadets. His scaled hide bore scars from battles across 3 galaxies, and his 4 eyes had witnessed the rise and fall of entire star systems. "Today, we test your precision at extreme range." His voice rumbled through the translation matrix. "Each species will demonstrate their natural advantages. Krillians, your forearmed stability and armor-piercing rounds. Zephyrians, your electromagnetic pulse rifles and enhanced reflexes. Vorthons, your quantum-entangled targeting systems." He paused, his gaze falling on Sarah. "And our human representative will show us what Earth's warriors bring to the battlefield." The other cadets exchanged glances. Humans had joined the Galactic Council only recently, and their military capabilities remained largely untested against alien forces. They had no natural armor, no enhanced reflexes, no quantum-linked nervous systems. They seemed soft, fragile, almost primitive by galactic standards. Sarah began assembling her rifle with practiced efficiency. The weapon was a custom build based on Earth's most advanced sniper platforms, but modified with her own innovations. The barrel was longer than standard, crafted from a titanium carbon composite that she had developed herself. The scope was a hybrid system combining traditional optics with limited quantum enhancement. Not enough to violate the Academy's regulations, but sufficient to give her an edge. Most intriguingly, her ammunition was completely unique. Instead of the standard energy projectiles or armor-piercing rounds used by other species, Sarah had brought custom-manufactured bullets. Each round was precision-machined to tolerances measured in fractions of micrometers, with a specialized core that she kept secret from her classmates. "What's in those bullets, human?" asked Lirana, a Zephyrian whose silver skin shimmered with natural electromagnetic fields. Her tone carried genuine curiosity rather than mockery. Sarah smiled slightly, checking her rifle's 0. "Just some Earth chemistry. Nothing fancy." The testing began with the closest targets at 500 meters. Each species performed admirably within their comfort zones. The Krillians' forearmed shooting stance provided incredible stability, allowing them to place shots with mechanical precision. The Zephyrians' enhanced nervous systems let them compensate for wind and atmospheric conditions almost instantly. The Vorthons used their quantum-linked targeting to predict and adjust for every variable simultaneously. Sarah's performance at these ranges was competent, but unremarkable. Her shots were accurate, but no more so than any well-trained alien marksman. The other cadets began to relax, their initial wariness of the unknown human capabilities fading into polite indifference. As the targets moved to longer ranges, 800 meters, on 200 meters, 1/800 meters, the gaps began to show. Several alien cadets started missing shots as their natural advantages reached their limits. Energy weapons dispersed over extreme distances. Quantum targeting systems struggled with the cumulative effects of atmospheric interference, but Sarah's performance remained steady. Her primitive projectile weapon seemed immune to the energy dispersion that plagued plasma rifles. Her custom rounds cut through atmospheric interference that scrambled more advanced targeting systems. By the time they reached 2.2 kilometers, only Sarah and 3 Vorthon cadets remained in contention. Impressive for a primitive kinetic weapon, admitted Theldor, the lead Vorthon cadet. His crystalline features reflected the light in prismatic patterns as he spoke. But this is where physics favors quantum systems. The computational requirements for these distances exceed organic processing capabilities. Sarah nodded politely, making minute adjustments to her scope. She was calculating wind speed, humidity, temperature gradients, and the Coriolis effect of the planet's rotation. But unlike the Vorthons, she was doing it all in her head, using techniques passed down through generations of human marksmen. At 2.8 kilometers, the Vorthons achieved their hits, their quantum computers providing perfect solutions to the ballistic equations. The watching instructors nodded with approval. This was the expected limit of accurate shooting in this gravity and atmosphere. Well shot, Instructor Zalthok rumbled. That concludes today's demonstration of extreme range capabilities. Sarah was still kneeling behind her rifle, making final adjustments. Actually, sir, I'd like to try one more target. The instructor's four eyes blinked in sequence. Cadet Chen, there are no targets beyond 2.8 kilometers. You've performed adequately for your species' capabilities. I see a target at approximately 3.7 kilometers, Sarah replied, her voice calm and confident. That communications array on the far ridge. It's about the same size as a standard combat target. A murmur ran through the assembled cadets and instructors. 3.7 kilometers was beyond the effective range of any personal weapon in the galactic arsenal. The atmospheric interference alone should make accurate targeting impossible with primitive kinetic rounds. Instructor, Zalthok's translator remained silent for a long moment as he processed this unprecedented request. The silence stretched across the firing range like a taut wire. Instructor Zalthok's scarred features showed the kind of disbelief reserved for cadets who claimed they could fly without anti-grav units. His four eyes focused on Sarah with growing intensity, as if trying to determine whether this human was delusional or dangerously confident. Cadet Chen, his voice carried the weight of decades in command. The atmospheric density at this altitude creates thermal layering that disrupts targeting calculations beyond 3.2 kilometers. The projectile drop alone would require compensation angles that exceed standard scope adjustments. Are you certain you understand the physics involved? Sarah remained motionless behind her rifle, her eye pressed to the scope as she studied the distant communications array. The target was barely visible to the naked eye, a small metallic structure perched on a rocky outcrop that jutted from the canyon's far wall. Wind indicators scattered throughout the range showed multiple air currents moving in different directions at various altitudes. A sniper's nightmare. I understand the physics. Sir, she replied without moving from her position. But I also understand something else. Human snipers have been making impossible shots for centuries with nothing but mechanical calculations and intuition. We've been doing this since before we knew other worlds existed. Vextar's mandibles clicked in amusement. Intuition? Against quantum-calculated ballistics? This human's primitive brain cannot process the variables involved in such a shot. She'll miss by hundreds of meters. The Vorthon cadets exchanged glances through their crystalline neural networks, sharing calculations instantly. Theldor spoke for the group, his prismatic voice carrying mathematical certainty. Our quantum analysis confirms the Krillian's assessment. Atmospheric interference creates 17 distinct thermal layers between here and the target. Projectile velocity decay, gravitational drop, and Coriolis deflection combine to create an impossible ballistic solution. Sarah finally lifted her head from the scope and looked at the assembled aliens. Her expression held no arrogance, no bravado, just the quiet confidence of someone who had spent countless hours perfecting an ancient art. You're calculating this like a computer problem. But shooting isn't just mathematics. It's understanding how the world works, how air moves, how metal flies. She gestured toward the custom rounds loaded in her rifle. These aren't standard projectiles. The core contains a tungsten-depleted uranium composite surrounded by a polymer jacket that ablates predictably in flight. The weight distribution shifts during trajectory, automatically compensating for some atmospheric effects. It's technology, but technology guided by human understanding of ballistics. Instructor Zalthok's expression shifted from skepticism to curiosity. His species, the Thuvarians, had dominated galactic warfare for millennia through superior technology and overwhelming firepower. But they had always relied on energy weapons and guided munitions. The concept of unguided projectiles achieving extreme precision through pure, Physics was almost alien to their thinking. "Explain your targeting methodology," he commanded. Sarah pointed to various visual references scattered across the landscape. "I'm reading wind conditions from vegetation movement at 6 different elevation points. The thermal layers create mirages that actually tell me about air density variations. That dust cloud at 1.8 kilometers shows me the primary wind stream. The way light refracts off that metal structure at 2.5 kilometers indicates temperature gradients." She paused, her finger tracing invisible lines through the air. "Then there's the planet's rotation, which affects my horizontal adjustment. The gravity here is 1.12 times Earth standard, which changes my vertical drop calculations. And I need to account for the fact that my target is moving. Not the array itself, but the planet beneath it." Liorana's electromagnetic field pulsed with fascination. "You're processing all of that manually? Without computational assistance?" "Computational assistance would actually hurt me here," Sarah explained. "Computers work with precise numbers, but ballistics at extreme range isn't precise. It's organic. Every shot teaches you something about how projectiles behave in real conditions versus theoretical models. After 10,000 practice rounds, you start to feel the mathematics instead of calculating them." The alien cadets murmured among themselves in various languages and communication methods. The concept of feeling mathematics was as foreign to them as their quantum targeting systems were to human understanding. Most galactic species had evolved beyond intuitive responses, relying instead on enhanced senses and technological augmentation. Sarah made her final scope adjustments, her movements deliberate and practiced. The custom rifle was an extension of her body, every control familiar from years of training. She had started shooting at age 12 on Earth's military ranges, learning from veterans who had perfected their skills in conflicts across Earth's history. "The human's methodology is inefficient," declared Rexhan, a Krillian instructor observing from the side. "Our battle computers can calculate optimal firing solutions in 0.3 seconds. Why would any species rely on biological intuition when technological precision is available?" "Because," Sarah said softly, settling into her final shooting position, "sometimes the impossible shot isn't about perfect calculations. It's about understanding that perfection doesn't exist. Every variable you can measure changes between the time you pull the trigger and when the bullet arrives. So you don't shoot at where the target is or even where calculations say it will be. You shoot it where everything will align when physics has finished doing its work." The wind had been gusting erratically for the past 10 minutes, but Sarah had noticed a pattern. Every 7 minutes there was a brief lull as the thermal column stabilized. She had 40 seconds until the next window. Her breathing slowed to the deep rhythmic pattern that had been drilled into her since basic training, heart rate dropping, muscle tension releasing, the world narrowing to the narrow field of view through her scope. The communications array sat in sharp focus, a small metal target at an impossible distance. 30 seconds. The wind indicators showed the beginning of the lull pattern. Temperature readings from her scope's limited sensors confirmed the thermal layers were stabilizing. 20 seconds. Sarah's finger found the trigger's first stage, removing all slack without firing. Her breathing paused at the natural respiratory pause, the moment when the human body was most stable. 10 seconds. The distant target seemed to pulse slightly in her scope, as atmospheric conditions shifted. This was the moment when human intuition had to override technological assistance, when years of experience with how bullets actually flew had to triumph over computer projections. 5 seconds. Sarah's world contracted to a single point of focus, the precise spot where instinct told her the bullet needed to go to intercept a target 3.7 kilometers away. The trigger broke cleanly, sending the custom round on its long journey through multiple atmospheric layers toward a target that represented the absolute limit of kinetic weapon effectiveness. The sharp crack of Sarah's rifle echoed across the canyon, followed immediately by an eerie silence that seemed to swallow all sound. The custom round departed the barrel at nearly twice the velocity of standard galactic kinetic weapons, its specially designed polymer jacket beginning the controlled ablation process that would fine-tune its aerodynamics during the long flight. Sarah remained motionless in her shooting position, her eye still pressed to the scope. She was tracking the bullet's trajectory through minute observations that no alien technology could replicate, the barely perceptible shimmer as the projectile disturbed air currents, the way distant heat mirages shifted slightly in response to the supersonic wake. The assembled cadets and instructors watched the distant communications array through various forms of enhanced optics. At 3.7 kilometers, even the most advanced alien vision systems could barely resolve details of the target. The idea that a primitive kinetic projectile could maintain accuracy over such a distance violated everything they understood about ballistic limitations. Time to target. Approximately 8 seconds, announced Theldor, his crystalline neural networks calculating the projectile's theoretical flight path. Atmospheric interference will cause significant deviation. Mathematical probability of impact approaches 0. Instructor Zalthok activated his command scope, its quantum-enhanced optics bringing the distant target into sharp focus. Around him, other instructors and senior cadets did the same, creating a collective observation network that could track the projectile's approach from multiple angles. Flight time, 6 seconds, reported Commander Krikstar, the Academy senior weapons instructor. Her 3-meter frame towered over the assembled group, her natural armor bearing the scars of battles fought with energy weapons across 17 star systems. The projectile appears to be maintaining trajectory, but thermal layering should cause significant deflection in 3, 2, 1. At exactly the moment when galactic ballistic models predicted catastrophic trajectory deviation, something extraordinary happened. Instead of the expected deflection, the projectile seemed to correct its path slightly as if guided by an invisible hand. The polymer jacket was ablating in precisely controlled stages, the changing weight distribution automatically compensating for atmospheric effects that would have defeated any standard ammunition. Impossible, whispered Rexhan, his 4 arms trembling with shock. The projectile is self-correcting without guidance systems. How does primitive human technology achieve autonomous ballistic adjustment? Sarah's voice remained calm as she continued tracking the shot. It's not autonomous. Every variable I observed before firing is playing out exactly as predicted. The jacket ablation pattern was calculated for these specific atmospheric conditions. The weight shift happens on schedule because I designed it to happen. 3 seconds remaining. The bullet had now traveled over 2/3 of the distance to target, passing through multiple thermal layers that should have scattered it hundreds of meters off course. Instead, it maintained a trajectory that seemed to defy physics, or perhaps demonstrated a deeper understanding of physics than galactic science had achieved. The human calculated ablation patterns manually. Liarana's electromagnetic field pulsed with disbelief. Our quantum computers require 0.4 seconds to process similar calculations. How does biological neural processing achieve comparable results? Because I'm not calculating in real time, Sarah explained, her attention still fixed on the distant target. I spent 3 months before coming here testing different jacket compositions in Earth's atmosphere. Then I extrapolated the data for this planet's atmospheric density and gravitational field. Every round in my rifle is custom loaded for these exact conditions. 2 seconds. The projectile entered its final approach phase, where the last of the polymer jacket would complete its ablation cycle. This was the moment of greatest uncertainty, where all calculations met the reality of complex atmospheric physics. 1 second. Through their various optical systems, the observers could now see the tiny projectile as it approached the communications array. Its trajectory appeared perfect, aimed directly at the center of the target structure. Impact. The tungsten-depleted uranium core struck the communications array with devastating precision, the kinetic energy at 3.7 kilometers, still sufficient to completely destroy the target structure. Metal fragments scattered in all directions as the array collapsed, its twisted remains tumbling down the rocky slope. For a moment, absolute silence reigned across the firing range. The assembled aliens stood frozen, their various sensory organs struggling to process what they had just witnessed. A human with a primitive kinetic weapon had achieved what their most advanced targeting systems declared impossible. Bextar was the first to speak, his mandibles clicking in rapid patterns that the translator struggled to render. The target, it's completely destroyed, at 3.7 kilometers, with an unguided projectile. Instructor Zalthok slowly lowered his command scope, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as his mind processed the implications. In 17 interstellar conflicts, he had never seen anything comparable to what this human had just accomplished. His species' energy weapons were devastatingly effective at short to medium range, but their maximum accurate range barely exceeded 2.2 kilometers. Cadet Chen. His voice carried a respect that had been absent minutes earlier. Please explain how you achieved autonomous trajectory correction without guidance systems. Sarah finally lifted her head from the scope, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. There was no autonomous correction, sir. The bullet did exactly what I designed it to do. The polymer jacket ablation wasn't random. It was precisely engineered to create specific aerodynamic changes at predetermined points during flight. She gestured toward her rifle. The jacket starts ablating immediately upon leaving the barrel. Layer 1 burns off during the first 800 meters, reducing diameter slightly and increasing velocity. Layer 2 ablates between 800 and 1,600 meters, shifting the center of gravity forward to compensate for gravitational drop. Layer 3 burns away in the final approach, exposing the tungsten core for maximum penetration. The Vorthon cadets exchanged rapid data bursts through their neural networks, attempting to process the implications of such precisely timed ballistic modifications. Their quantum computers could calculate optimal trajectories, but the concept of physically modifying the projectile during flight to match theoretical requirements was beyond their technological paradigm. Engineered ammunition that modifies itself during flight to match atmospheric conditions. Theldor's prismatic features reflected complex patterns of light as his neural networks worked to understand the concept. This requires predictive modeling that approaches quantum computational complexity. Actually, it's simpler than your quantum targeting, Sarah replied, beginning to pack her equipment. Quantum systems try to calculate every variable simultaneously. My approach accepts that some variables can't be calculated, so I build adaptability into the projectile itself. Instead of predicting exactly how the atmosphere will affect the bullet, I make a bullet that adapts to whatever the atmosphere does. Commander Krickstar approached the human cadet, her massive frame casting a shadow over the firing line. Her natural armor bore scars from plasma burns and energy weapon impacts, testament to battles fought with the most advanced weapons in galactic arsenals. Yet none of those weapons could achieve what she had just witnessed. Human. Her voice rumbled with newfound respect. Your species approaches warfare differently than we expected. This precision, it suggests capabilities we had not considered. Sarah shouldered her rifle, the primitive weapon suddenly looking far less primitive to the assembled aliens. On Earth we have a saying, one shot, one kill. When you can't rely on overwhelming firepower or quantum targeting, you learn to make every shot count. We've been perfecting that skill for centuries. News of Sarah's impossible shot spread through the Academy's communication networks faster than quantum data transfer. Within hours, cadets from 17 different species had gathered to examine the destroyed communications array, measuring the distance with precision, instruments, and analyzing the trajectory calculations that had made such accuracy possible. The Academy's senior faculty convened an emergency session to discuss the implications. In the Grand Council chamber, holographic displays showed the complete ballistic analysis of Sarah's shot, with trajectory models that defied conventional galactic understanding of kinetic weapon limitations. The humans call it extreme long-range precision shooting, reported Dr. Venthara, the Academy's chief weapons analyst. Her insectoid features clicked rapidly as she processed data streams from multiple sources. Their military archives contain records of similar shots dating back centuries. They have been developing these techniques in isolation, without technological augmentation. Fleet Admiral Korkstol, commander of the Galactic Council's combined military forces, studied the data with growing interest. His cybernetic implants processed information faster than biological neural networks, but even enhanced analysis couldn't fully explain how human intuition had overcome quantum-calculated impossibility. Show me their historical records, he commanded, his artificial voice synthesizer conveying authority earned through victories against the hegemony invasion fleets. The holographic display shifted to show archived footage from Earth's military conflicts. Human snipers engaging targets at distances that galactic doctrine declared ineffective for kinetic weapons. Soldiers making precision shots in atmospheric conditions that should have scattered projectiles beyond useful accuracy. This recording shows a human sniper, named Carlos Hathcock, achieving a confirmed kill at 2.5 kilometers using primitive chemical propellants, Dr. Venthara explained. Their records indicate this was considered exceptional even by human standards, Yet they achieved it without any technological augmentation. Admiral Corksthull's cybernetic implants whirred as they processed implications. If one human cadet can achieve 3.7-kilometer accuracy, what capabilities does their full military possess? Our intelligence reports suggest Earth maintains specialized sniper units with even more advanced equipment. Meanwhile, back at the firing range, Sarah found herself surrounded by curious alien cadets asking increasingly technical questions about human shooting techniques. The atmosphere had shifted dramatically from morning dismissal to afternoon fascination. "Your species lacks natural armor," observed Zekthar, a young Krillian whose exoskeleton gleamed with polished perfection. "How do human snipers survive counter-battery fire from energy weapons?" Sarah cleaned her rifle with practiced efficiency, each component receiving careful attention. "We don't stand still long enough to get hit. Human doctrine emphasizes mobility and concealment over armor. We take the shot and relocate before the enemy can respond." This concept fascinated the aliens, whose military traditions generally favored either overwhelming technological superiority or natural physical advantages. The idea of achieving battlefield effectiveness through skill and mobility rather than equipment or evolution was revolutionary. "But energy weapons can track projectile origins instantly," protested Lirana. "Our electromagnetic sensors pinpoint firing positions within milliseconds of discharge." "That's true for energy weapons," Sarah agreed. "But kinetic rounds don't leave the same energy signature. By the time the bullet impacts, a good human sniper is already moving to a new position. We call it shoot and scoot." Theldor's crystalline features flickered with neural activity as he processed this information. "Your species developed asymmetric warfare techniques to compensate for technological disadvantages. This suggests a fundamentally different approach to military science." "We had to," Sarah replied simply. "Humans spent most of our history fighting each other with roughly equivalent technology. When both sides have similar weapons, victory goes to whoever uses them more effectively. So we got very good at using them effectively." Commander Krikstar arrived at the firing line accompanied by a full security detail and several senior faculty members. Her presence immediately commanded attention from all assembled cadets, regardless of species. "Cadet Chen," her voice carried the weight of command authority, "the Academy Council requests a demonstration of human long-range capabilities for our senior staff. Are you prepared to repeat your performance?" Sarah glanced at the reassembled target range, noting that maintenance crews had already positioned new targets at various extreme distances. The furthest marker now sat at 4.2 kilometers, well beyond anything previously attempted at the Academy. "I can demonstrate the techniques, ma'am," Sarah replied carefully. "But I should mention that my ammunition supply is limited. Each round is custom manufactured for specific conditions. I have 12 shots remaining." The admission that her exceptional performance depended on limited, specialized ammunition should have diminished the aliens' impression of human capabilities. Instead, it seemed to increase their respect. The idea that such precision required custom preparation for each engagement demonstrated a level of dedication to military excellence that transcended technological advantages. "Understood," Commander Krikstar replied. "Select your shots carefully. We wish to understand the practical limitations as well as the maximum capabilities of human precision shooting." As Sarah prepared for her second demonstration, word continued spreading through galactic military networks. Intelligence officers from major council worlds began requesting detailed analyses of human kinetic weapon capabilities. The implications extended far beyond Academy training exercises. If humans could achieve such precision with primitive kinetic weapons, how would they perform with access to galactic technology? What could human intuition and training accomplish when combined with quantum targeting systems or energy weapon platforms? More concerning to some council members was the realization that Earth's admission to the Galactic Council had been based on incomplete intelligence. If human military capabilities had been underestimated in one area, what other surprises might their species possess? Sarah positioned herself at the firing line, her rifle configured for the new extreme range targets. Around her, senior Academy faculty activated recording equipment to document every aspect of her shooting technique. This demonstration would become part of official military archives, studied by tacticians and weapons specialists across council space. "Target selection?" inquired Instructor Zalthok. Sarah studied the available targets through her scope, noting wind conditions and atmospheric effects at each range. The 4.2-kilometer target represented a significant challenge even by human standards, pushing beyond anything she had attempted before. "I'll engage the 3.9-kilometer target first," she decided. "The atmospheric conditions are more stable at that range, and I want to verify my equipment adjustments before attempting maximum distance." What the aliens didn't realize was that Sarah was conducting her own intelligence assessment. Every question they asked, every recording they made, every detail they observed was providing her with valuable information about galactic military doctrine and technological capabilities. Earth's military intelligence would be very interested to learn how galactic forces approached long-range engagement, what countermeasures they employed against kinetic weapons, and how their tactical thinking differed from human doctrine. As she settled into her shooting position, Sarah reflected on the fact that this demonstration was as much about gathering intelligence as displaying capability. The Galactic Council was learning about human potential, but humans were also learning about galactic limitations. The shot that had destroyed the communications array was just the beginning of a much larger conversation about Earth's place in galactic military affairs. Sarah's second shot shattered the 3.9-kilometer target with the same devastating precision as her first, but this time the assembled faculty was prepared with full sensor arrays and recording equipment. Every microsecond of the bullet's flight path was documented, analyzed, and transmitted to military intelligence centers across Council space. The data revealed something that shocked galactic weapons experts. Human kinetic weapons weren't just accurate at extreme range. They were actually more reliable than energy weapons beyond 3.5 kilometers. Energy beams suffered from atmospheric dispersion and quantum interference that made them increasingly unpredictable at long distances, while properly designed kinetic projectiles maintained their effectiveness through pure physics. "This changes everything," Admiral Corkstool announced during an emergency strategic session. His cybernetic implants displayed holographic battle scenarios as he spoke. "Our entire doctrine assumes energy weapon superiority. If humans can consistently engage targets beyond our effective range, our fleet formations become vulnerable." Dr. Venthara's analysis revealed even more disturbing implications. "Admiral, the humans appear to have developed these capabilities specifically because they lacked access to energy weapons. Their entire military evolution was shaped by kinetic weapon limitations, forcing them to maximize efficiency within those constraints." Meanwhile, Sarah was preparing for her most ambitious attempt yet. The 4.2-kilometer target that represented the absolute theoretical limit of her equipment's capabilities. This shot would require not just technical precision, but also a perfect understanding of atmospheric conditions that changed moment by moment. "The wind patterns are extremely complex at this range," she explained to the watching faculty. "I'm reading 7 distinct air currents between here and the target, each moving at different speeds and directions. The bullet will pass through multiple pressure zones that will affect its trajectory." Commander Krikstar studied the distant target through enhanced optics. "Our ballistic computers indicate that projectile deviation should exceed target dimensions by a factor of 4. The shot is mathematically impossible. Your computers are calculating based on average atmospheric conditions," Sarah replied, making minute adjustments to her scope. "But the atmosphere isn't average, it's constantly changing. I'm not shooting at mathematical predictions. I'm shooting at what's actually happening right now." She pointed to various landscape features visible between her position and the target. "That dust cloud at 2.1 kilometers is moving northeast at approximately 8 meters per second. The heat shimmer off that rock formation at 3.3 kilometers indicates a thermal updraft. The way those plants are bending at 3.8 kilometers shows me the wind direction in the target area." The alien observers exchanged rapid communications as they attempted to process this approach to ballistic calculation. Their technology provided precise measurements of atmospheric conditions, but Sarah was reading the environment like a living system, interpreting visual cues that their sensors couldn't quantify. "Human intuition appears to process environmental data in ways that complement technological measurement," observed Theldor. "Instead of competing with quantum calculation, organic analysis fills gaps that mathematical models cannot address." As Sarah prepared for the shot, encrypted communications flowed between the Academy and Earth's military command. Human intelligence officers were receiving detailed reports about galactic military capabilities, technological limitations, and strategic assumptions that could prove invaluable in future conflicts. The information was particularly significant because it revealed that galactic military doctrine had evolved around technological superiority, rather than tactical innovation. Council forces relied heavily on energy weapons, quantum targeting, and overwhelming firepower, but they had limited experience with adaptive tactics or asymmetric warfare. Engaging target, Sarah announced, settling into her final shooting position. This shot required every technique she had mastered during years of training on Earth's most challenging ranges. The distance was beyond anything attempted in galactic military history with kinetic weapons, pushing into territory that alien doctrine considered impossible for unguided projectiles. The custom round she loaded was her most advanced design, with a 5-stage ablation pattern calculated specifically for this planet's atmospheric density. The polymer jacket was engineered to burn away in precisely timed stages, each transition designed to compensate for different atmospheric effects during the bullet's long flight. As she pressed her eye to the scope, Sarah could see the target clearly despite the enormous distance. Her hybrid optical system combined traditional glass lenses with limited quantum enhancement, providing clarity without relying completely on alien technology. The breathing pattern that slowed her heart rate was a technique passed down through generations of human marksmen. The natural respiratory pause that provided maximum stability was a biological response that no alien species shared, giving humans a unique advantage in precision shooting. Her finger found the trigger's first stage, removing all mechanical slack while maintaining complete control. The rifle's custom trigger had been adjusted to break cleanly at exactly the pressure she preferred, with no creep or over-travel that might disturb her aim. Around her, the assembled aliens watched in fascination as a human demonstrated capabilities that their technology declared impossible. Recording equipment captured every detail of her shooting technique, creating archives that would influence galactic military doctrine for generations. The moment before firing, Sarah's world contracted to a single point of focus where instinct and calculation merged into perfect clarity. Years of training had prepared her for this moment, but success would depend on her ability to read atmospheric conditions that changed faster than any computer could calculate. The trigger broke with mechanical precision, sending her most advanced projectile on a journey through multiple atmospheric layers toward a target that represented the absolute limit of kinetic weapon effectiveness. This shot would determine whether human precision shooting was merely impressive or truly revolutionary in galactic terms. As the bullet began its long flight toward the 4.2-kilometer target, Sarah maintained her position behind the scope, tracking the projectile's progress through environmental indicators that only human experience could interpret. The next few seconds would demonstrate whether Earth's ancient art of precision shooting could overcome the latest challenges that alien worlds could provide. The watching aliens held their breath, their various sensory organs focused on a distant target that logic declared unreachable, while a human sniper prepared to rewrite the rules of long-range engagement. The projectile's flight time at 4.2 kilometers stretched to nearly 10 seconds, an eternity in which atmospheric conditions could shift dramatically. Sarah remained motionless behind her scope, tracking the bullet's progress through minute environmental changes that revealed its trajectory to her trained eye. At 2 seconds into flight, the first ablation stage triggered exactly as designed, the outer polymer layer burning away to reduce diameter and increase velocity. The bullet was now passing through the primary thermal layer that had defeated previous galactic attempts at extreme-range kinetic engagement. 4 seconds. The projectile encountered the complex wind patterns Sarah had observed, but instead of being deflected as galactic computers predicted, it maintained course as the second ablation stage shifted its center of gravity forward. The bullet was essentially redesigning itself during flight to overcome atmospheric challenges. 6 seconds. Multiple alien sensors tracked the tiny projectile as it passed through what their models declared the maximum effective range for any kinetic weapon. Yet it continued on a trajectory that seemed to mock the laws of physics, or perhaps demonstrated laws that galactic science had never fully understood. 8 seconds. The third ablation stage exposed the aerodynamically optimized tungsten core, configured for maximum stability during the final approach. Sarah could see through her scope that the bullet was tracking directly toward the center of the target, its path unwavering despite atmospheric conditions that should have scattered it hundreds of meters off course. 9 seconds. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the impossible became inevitable. This shot represented more than just exceptional marksmanship. It demonstrated that human military capabilities had been fundamentally underestimated by galactic intelligence impact. The tungsten core struck the 4.2-kilometer target with devastating effect, completely destroying the structure and sending fragments tumbling down the canyon wall. The kinetic energy delivered at such extreme range was sufficient to penetrate any personal armor in galactic arsenals, making human snipers a threat that existing military doctrine had never anticipated. Absolute silence reigned across the firing range. The assembled aliens stood frozen, their various sensory organs struggling to process the implications of what they had witnessed. Sarah Chen, a human cadet with primitive equipment, had just demonstrated capabilities that exceeded anything in galactic military archives. Commander Krickstar was the first to speak, her massive frame trembling slightly as she processed the strategic implications. In 40 years of military service, I have never seen anything comparable to what you just accomplished. This shot will be studied by tacticians across Council space. Sarah finally lifted her head from the scope, her expression calm despite having just rewritten the rules of long-range engagement. Thank you, ma'am. Though I should mention that this represents standard capability for Earth's specialized sniper units. We have marksmen who could achieve similar results with even more challenging conditions. The admission hit the alien observers like a physical blow. If this extraordinary demonstration represented standard human capability, rather than exceptional performance, what did Earth's military actually possess? Intelligence estimates of human combat effectiveness would require complete revision. Instructor Zalthok approached Sarah with newfound respect evident in his posture. Cadet Chen, your species has demonstrated capabilities that our military doctrine never anticipated. How many humans possess these precision shooting skills? Earth maintains approximately 50,000 trained snipers across our various military branches, Sarah replied matter-of-factly. Each one capable of engaging targets beyond 2.5 kilometers under favorable conditions. Our special operations units routinely train for shots exceeding 3.5 kilometers, 50,000. The number reverberated through the assembled aliens' consciousness like a shockwave. Galactic Council forces included perhaps 200 snipers total across all member species, none capable of the precision they had just witnessed. Dr. Venthara's analysis equipment had recorded every detail of Sarah's shooting technique, creating a database that would influence military thinking throughout Council space. The implications extend beyond individual marksmanship, she observed. Human tactical doctrine appears designed around maximizing effectiveness with limited technological resources. What the aliens were beginning to understand was that Earth's military evolution had followed a completely different path from galactic development. While Council species had focused on technological advancement and overwhelming firepower, humans had perfected the art of doing more with less. Sarah began packing her equipment. The custom rifle that had seemed primitive that morning now recognized as a masterpiece of precision engineering. If you're interested in learning more about human military capabilities, I'd recommend requesting a cultural exchange with Earth's military academies. We have techniques that might complement your existing doctrine. The suggestion was diplomatic, but its implications were clear. Earth possessed military knowledge that could benefit the entire Galactic Council, but such knowledge would need to be shared rather than simply observed. The relationship between Earth and Council space was about to become much more complex. As news of Sarah's demonstration spread through galactic communication networks, military commanders across dozens of worlds began reassessing their strategic assumptions. Energy weapons and quantum targeting systems remained formidable, but human kinetic weapons had demonstrated capabilities that filled crucial gaps in galactic doctrine. More importantly, the human approach to warfare suggested possibilities that pure technological advancement had overlooked. The combination of intuitive analysis, adaptive tactics, and precision engineering represented a military philosophy that could enhance rather than compete with galactic capabilities. Within hours, formal requests began arriving at Earth's embassy for military consultations, technology sharing agreements, and joint training exercises. The Galactic Council's initial condescension toward human military capability had transformed into genuine respect and curiosity. Admiral Corksthull's final assessment would become part of official military doctrine. Human forces represent asymmetric capabilities that complement, rather than challenge, Council military strength. Their precision kinetic weapons provide effective engagement ranges beyond energy weapon limitations. Recommend immediate integration of human tactical doctrine into combined operations planning. Sarah Chen had arrived at the academy as an unknown cadet from a primitive world. She was leaving as the representative of a military tradition that would reshape galactic warfare. Her impossible shots had demonstrated that sometimes the most advanced solution was the one that understood physics, rather than trying to overcome it. As the alien cadets gathered around her with questions about human training, methods, and equipment specifications, Sarah realized that her demonstration had accomplished more than just impressive marksmanship. She had opened a dialogue between civilizations that would benefit both Earth and the wider galaxy. The primitive, kinetic rifle that had drawn laughter that morning was now being studied by the galaxy's leading weapons experts. Human precision shooting, dismissed as obsolete technology, had proven itself superior to quantum targeting at extreme ranges. Most importantly, the impossible shot at 3.7 kilometers had become the foundation for a new understanding between species, proving that military excellence came not from technology alone, but from the marriage of innovation, training, and the ancient human art of making every shot count.